Hi everyone, welcome back to the podcast. My name's Alan Quinn. I am the head of brand marketing and various other things at Cars.co.za. And today I am honoured to have the very scary Wendy
Not really.
Knowler
Not
with
really.
us. Oh, Wendy, you are scary.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of dealerships out there, there's a lot of people out there that whenever Wendy Knowler calls you, you know you've done something wrong
Well, yes.
and you need to be accountable for it.
You tell them that.
But that's a compliment. I genuinely mean it as a compliment. You are the most preeminent consumer journalist in the country, and you've worked very hard in your time to earn that reputation, and
Thank you.
congratulations for that.
Thank you. Yeah, 27 years and counting.
27 years.
Yeah. I mean, I always know because I started consumer journalism after other forms. Just after my daughter was born, after maternity leave, and she's now 27. So it's very easy for me to figure out how long I've been in the trenches. But yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way. Best career ever.
How do you define consumer journalism?
Well, I step in when consumers are having problems with their various service providers, be they, in a bank, an insurer, a car dealership, you name it. Anytime when money is exchanged for a service or goods and something has gone wrong, I step in and try and get justice. I deal with a lot of municipalities as well, but dare I say it's much harder for me to get results when dealing with government organizations and, dealing with private companies. They tend to, most of them, have a higher level of accountability. That's just my experience.
So we're here to talk about cars. Now, I'm sure you get asked this question a lot, but let's say I'm in the market for a car.
Mm-hmm.
And probably it's going to be a used car. I'm going to spend a couple of $100,000. What should I be looking for? How should I be thinking about this?
Wow. So it's a sort of funnel effect. You've got to start off looking at, do you want to buy new or used, looking at the pros and cons. I'd say definitely used, but only if you're prepared to do your homework. If you want everything to happen, if you're the kind of person that sits back and likes everything to happen for you, and you sign where you're told to sign and accept everything that the salesperson tells you without doing your own checks, if you don't read the contract first because you've been told what's what and you don't need to read it, if you don't, sort your own car finance out because it's easier just to let the F&I do it without checking anything that they've come up with, then I'd say maybe a used car is probably not the best option for you. They're going to see you coming with respect. There's so much you need to consider. I was just chatting to the Uber driver on the way here, and he wants to trade in his Corolla for something else. And you have to say, well, he said, what should I consider? And I said, well, before you sign the offer to purchase, get an insurance quote, especially here in Gauteng, because there are cars that are on the hijackers and car thieves list, and you're paying a premium anyway as an Uber driver, but you're going to pay an extra premium because you've chosen a car that is very, very high risk, and your premium's going to reflect that. So, I mean, this is a very, very vast subject, and I deal with every aspect of it. And of course, I have a little bit of don't have time for it anymore, but a bit of a side hustle as a motoring journalist for 15 years. So I come at cars from all sorts of angles. But mostly my inbox, people don't write to me. They would rather ask Cars.co.za, what car should I buy? Let's look at the reviews, whatever. But when something goes wrong with that car that they've bought, then they want to come to me. And let me tell you, car-related issues, I should actually ask AI to help me get a percentage, but they make up definitely, I'd say, more than 50%.
But let's start right where you start. Right. This new versus used.
Yes.
Newer. Let's not even say new, but a used car 2 or 3 years
Right.
old versus, look, you can get some very nice BMW 3 Series or Mercedes C-Class that are 10 years old for a couple of $100K. They look beautiful, but should that be the way we think about it? Because it really is quite nice still.
It is still quite nice. I think the main thing, look, and you're not going to suffer depreciation like the first or second owner did. The figures are amazing. By 3 or 4 years, could be down 50%. So there is that. You get a lot more bang for your buck, obviously, and a lot of spec and safety features and all the rest. But then you've got to look at the flip side of that, which is cost of ownership. So your insurance premium is going to be generally lower because the car is worth less. And then, of course, servicing, maintaining when things go wrong. There's no warranty. If you buy an aftermarket warranty, yes, there's an option, but a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that the warranty that they buy aftermarket is the same as the OEM warranty, and that's a very big mistake because the exclusions are huge.
It's actually one of the things I was going to ask you,
Yeah.
because when you're at a dealership, they love to sell them, and
Yes.
I'm always wary about things that people love to sell. But you sit there, and I remember when someone called me, I drive a BMW, and they called
can
me
tell.
thank you.
So do I, by the way.
And I drive it like a BMW driver, and I'm very proud of that. But yeah, BMW offered me a warranty at a price, and I did laugh at the person on the phone very rudely because
Yes.
the price was just exorbitant. And then someone rings me with a much cheaper price, and I always ask one question: so if my gearbox falls out,
Good question.
what do you pay?
Yes.
And they give me a price, and you don't get an oil change
Yeah.
for that price.
Yeah.
Never mind a new gearbox.
Yes.
So what should be people looking at whenever they're looking at these products?
So lots and lots of homework to be done, because rather do it before than people are very prepared to do it afterwards when they've come unstuck. And I'm like, well, if you just put that time and effort in before, you wouldn't be here, which sounds judgy, but having done this for so long, I need to say that. So yes, do what you did. Pose the question as if it's happened. Okay, I've got this warranty. The gearbox packs up. This car is 10 years old or whatever. What will your warranty cover? So often they will, and people will say, oh, it's got cover. I've got coverage of up to 100,000 Rand, whatever. But the small print says that per incident, or it's X amount, and also each component that could fail, there's a financial limit on that. So you're still left. People think, oh, 100,000, that's great. Yeah, I'll pay my money. Peace of mind, not. So ask those questions. What are your component limits? And then check. I always say, unfortunately, if someone's telling you something verbally, they may be completely truthful and representing everything as it is, but there's a good chance that some of the stuff that's going to trip you up later, they're not going to verbally express to you. So if you're allergic to reading small print, you're going to get caught sooner or later, and especially if you're buying an aftermarket warranty. Something else I want to say, Alan, that I'm seeing about with these warranties that the dealerships like to sell. People who are first-time buyers and experienced, they'll go in and buy a second-hand car, not a BMW, or budget-level car, and they're told, sign here, and the warranty's added on. They almost say it's compulsory, which it's not.
Can't be.
And then it can't be. And then the first time there's an issue, it's no claim on your warranty. Number one, we in this country have the benefit of the Consumer Protection Act, whether the dealer or any other service provider knows it or likes it or not. So that's why it's called an implied warranty. It's there. It's just there. No one has to give it to you. And so that covers you for 6 months for any defects. It's complicated, and then unlike a toaster, you don't get to, at the first sign of trouble, say, I want a new one, please. The MIOS, or the industry ombuds, interprets it as each that applies to new one applies to the components, right? So I spend a lot of my time telling people, go back to your dealer and tell them, hello, the Consumer Protection Act applies. You are now liable to pay for new shocks or whatever the case may be, because the legislation is there to ensure that whatever we buy, new or secondhand, we have the protection against something going wrong for 6 months. So it has to last us in good order, as it's supposed to, for at least 6 months.
Let's come back to the Consumer Protection Act just now, because you said do your homework, right? So warranties, yes. Don't just read the fine. Get the fine print.
Aftermarket,
read
yes.
the fine print. What other types of homework should there be?
Well, I am seeing more and more, or getting more and more emails from people who sit in Joburg or Cape Town, for instance, they go onto sites like this. They see a car that's been put on by a dealership. They engage. They get a few photos. It's all done over the phone. They sign the OTP. The car gets flatbedded to wherever, and it's a complete disaster. So, I mean, it's 2025. We live in a digital world, so there is a place for that kind of automation to streamline lots of things. But buying a car without seeing it and buying a car without driving it, especially the former. But I mean, it might not be because the car is a bad runner, but you haven't driven that car. Maybe the clutch takes at a point that's not comfortable for you. Maybe the driving position is just not working for you. Maybe the power is too much or too little. I just kind of believe, Alan, that people buy cars without driving them. It's just absolutely crazy to me. So this sort of do everything quickly, order a car online and it gets trucked to you and it's all lekker. Well, it's in many cases not lekker. And the bad players in the industry, there are many good ones, and I mean that sincerely, but the bad players are enabled by consumers being comfortable with buying a car in that way. And so, get back to your question, if I was buying a secondhand car, whether I was doing it in person or long distance, to not get someone, either if you're lucky enough to have a fundi in the family or a good friend that you trust, get them to check the car, get them to drive it, but get a professional. There are many companies that do full checks. They have a sliding scale of services. So from the full thing, they will inspect the car, they will drive the car, they will do a background check, they'll check that the car hasn't had a haircut. For those that don't know, that's the speedometer turned back, and it's a very big problem in this country. That it wasn't written off by an insurer. I get many of these written off by an insurer. It lands up being auctioned somewhere. No one ever can tell you where or how, but that car gets patched together and then sold as a normal code 2. And then you buy it thinking it's just was owned by a nice old lady who drove to the shops, twice a week.
I don't want to digress, but code 2, code 3, I know the definition, but
Okay.
Code 3 you don't want.
Code 3 you don't want. Code 3, the insurers generally won't finance. So you're stuck there. So code 3, they can be on the road legally under certain conditions, but there has to be a roadworthy certificate that proves that the car, is structurally and mechanically sound enough to still be driven. So it can be built up again, but I had a case recently, a worst case scenario where the roadworthy was she never actually got to see it. She was told it was there, but obviously if there was one and it was a pass, then it would have been fraudulently. So she was in Cape Town, got the car trucked down, wanted to put a personalized plate on, so went to the licensing authority, and of course now you have to. Because she was doing it, they had put the car in her name, thinking it was going to be fun, and she wouldn't know. But because of the personalized plates, they said, okay, you need to roadworthy, and it failed dismally. The chassis was completely mangled. So, the short answer after all that is you have to get a full check. There are companies that will do it for you in terms of where that car's been. You don't know its past life. You can't trust your eyes, and in terms of the mileage, a common one. Ask right up before you get too deep in the negotiations. I want to see the service book, and I want to see the spare key. And if neither of those two, or only one of them is available, I would say walk away. Bad, bad, bad sign. So many people fall for that. We've still got to get the spare from the previous owner. It's coming. We'll get it to you. And it doesn't happen. And I don't need to tell you how expensive these keys are these days. It's just, for me, that would just sour the whole deal. They're not telling you up front, please be aware, this car doesn't have a spare. because who would want that, right?
Yeah.
So I could go on. There's so many tells, and that's before you get to signing the OTP, where you have to really have your wits about you.
So basically, go find somebody who does know how to
pay if
tell.
necessary.
Because for my sins, I worked in the insurance industry in the past, and what struck me is that a code 3 or write-off, as it's known, there's no definition of that. It's not that if the chassis is mangled, it gets written off.
Yeah.
It's a mathematical definition, because if the insurer doesn't feel like repairing it, they write it off.
Yeah. So that you're right. It's an insurance term, and people use it to apply to when a car is beyond redemption, and that's not the case. If you drive an expensive car with expensive parts, and it was still worth a lot, and you still owed a lot to the bank, you have a minor accident, you're going to reach 70% of, sorry, not a newer car, an older car. You're going to reach 70%. Say your car, my daughter has it now. I have a 20-year-old Subaru Forester. Through my motoring journalism, I didn't put a huge mileage on it. It's currently, 107,000 or something for a 20-year-old car. Beautiful. It's solid. It's got everything. She works at a game reserve, so it's perfect. But, on paper, it's probably worth 70K if I'm lucky. So she wouldn't have to do much damage in that car for it to be a write-off, and it would still be a perfectly good car. And that's the danger of driving these older cars, because now for me to replace that, or her to replace it, it's almost impossible. But write-off and code 3 are different. Write-off is an insurance term for uneconomical to repair, because the cost of the repair is 70% or more of what it's currently worth. And code 3 is it's well, I suppose it doesn't mean write-off. It just means really badly damaged, and requiring quite a lot of repair. And so unless you are buying, and that's why the insurers don't really want to do it, because if you had an accident and it's fixed, it's still a code 2. If it was a fender bender or whatever, that's a code 2. Code 3 means it was a pretty serious
But
accident.
It's possible to have a very serious accident and not be a code 3. That's why it gets someone to look at the frame.
Yeah, exactly. I'd absolutely get someone to do a full assessment, a structural assessment of the vehicle, because, as you know, the car can look beautiful. Under the skin, it tells a different story, but the car presents well, and most people aren't car fundies. They really don't understand much. They can see what it looks like, and they're interested in the sound system and the wheels and whatever else, but the rest, is not something that they have any particular expertise in.
But now, you are coming to our DealerCon. In fact, you're on stage at our DealerCon, which, thank you very much for agreeing to do that for us.
Looking forward to it.
How do you find a good dealer?
I'm the wrong person to ask. I can tell you the bad ones.
No, but you want to find a good dealer.
Yes, no, you do. You do. Now, here I have to be fair to dealers and all other service providers, because, combination of things go wrong for every service provider, right? And then there is I think in the minority, but there are certain consumers who don't have valid complaints. And that is going to drive negative reviews. So they're going to be on social media, they're going to be on Hello Peter, and the other sites. And so for me to say, find a dealership that's never had any complaints is definitely not fair, because that's the nature of the game. And cars, many moving parts, lots to go wrong, very, very high expectations on the part of the consumer, because especially if it's never a new car, and it's always a brand new or an out-the-box car. I'd love to see that box. But it's a huge investment for some people. Their car installment is their biggest expense. There's a status wrapped into that as well. And then there's, the fact that it gets them from A to B. It gets the kids to school. It gets them to work. If they're salespeople on the road, it's vital for their livelihood. Not to mention e-hailing drivers. So that makes for a very passionately angry person when something goes wrong, because it's annoying enough if your fridge breaks down or your washing machine, or your new shirt shrinks in the wash even though you washed it on cold or something like that. But when it's your car, there's a lot more at stake, and so the complaints are going to be of a very serious nature. And on TikTok, when people don't understand, or Instagram, they don't understand the issues, it can play out as there's only one side. It can create a bit of a skewed idea. So how do you find a new dealer? Well, you could look at the dealerships. I would say the best thing to do is word of mouth. We all have circles now, big circles. We have WhatsApp groups with our neighbors, with our extended families, with our work colleagues, whatever. Ask people like us. If I'm interested in buying from this dealership, have you had any dealings? You could get very forensic, and I know in the days of the Kinsey parts reports, I learned from him that even within the same general area, say Durban, all the branded dealers don't sell their parts for the same prices. There can be quite a vast discrepancy. So you could go down to that sort of level of research if you really wanted to. But I would say good old word of mouth. Sometimes you have to be a bit careful. Like I live in Somerset West, and so we have an information group there, and people will ask, who's the best person to install aircon, whatever. And just because of what I do, I can see sometimes, or I very strongly suspect, the way the recommendations come through, that it's either the person themselves or their mate, rather than someone that's had a genuine experience. And that's why with Hello Peter, for example, if someone complains to them, I don't know, I don't think normally it'll be a rave by the company about the company, and they suspect that it's a plant, it's not true. They will actually investigate and say, please give me the invoice as proof that you are a valid customer of this company. And we should do that more, so that, because they're not going to do it for every review, but it would make reviews, a lot more trustworthy.
Look, in our platform, we implemented Google reviews.
Yeah.
We didn't want to give the dealer an additional place to go and manage these things.
Yes, that's clever.
But we implemented Google reviews because a dealer that takes a review seriously is more likely to be trustworthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And that actually prompted me to say something that's really, really important. It's what I live by. It's never the mistake. We're human, and cars are mechanical and go wrong. That's what the warranty is there for, to a point. But with that point being, this car needs to now be taken back. But never, for me, it's never the problem. And that's why I say to all service providers, dealerships included, don't be afraid of a problem happening. And I say to consumers, this is the time when you discover what you really mean as a customer. Not when the bow's on the car that you paid for anyway, and the champagne, and you've bought it and it's all lovely and Instagram ready pics and everything. The trust of the relationship, like with any relationship, is not the wedding day and the honeymoon. It's when something goes wrong, which it will inevitably. And so don't judge the problem. Judge the lengths to which they did or didn't go to treat that fairly. And I do say, I've said it once, and I'm going to say it again. Yes, I go to bat for the consumer, but I've been doing this for long enough to know that sometimes the consumer expectation is not realistic or fair. And there comes a point where any service provider has to draw a line and say, in a respectful way, having done what is fair and reasonable, you're not going to please every customer. But I think we've got to a point, even on social media now, where there's a level of fairness and sort of understanding of what by customers. Like if somebody disses a really good brand that for ages has given good service, you will see other players coming on. But that wasn't my experience. Did you give them a fair opportunity? We don't know the other side, which is so nice for me to see on social media. Not always there, but there has been a maturing more. The engagement has by and large become a little bit more mature than it was in the early days.
I always look for if if someone in any industry asks you to do a review, they obviously take it seriously.
That's a very good point.
That's a
Yes.
very positive
Yes.
sign.
Yes.
But you're right. I mean, you can't make everyone happy, and there's some people who are just perennially unhappy.
Yeah, and many people are unhappy with me. I mean, I'm not providing a paid service, but still, people feel very entitled, and they'll say, if people say you're great, and I came to you with my problem, and you didn't even answer my email, you're rubbish. And sometimes it's on social media, and you just have to take a breath and understand the parameters in which you're working, and that you're not going to please with the best will in the world. You're not going to be able to make everybody happy, and just do the best you can.
But the worst thing in the world to look for is I liked the guy.
Yeah.
Car dealers, come on,
Yeah.
likable.
Yeah.
They're actually
Yeah.
very likable people
Yeah.
because they're salesmen.
Yeah, they are. They being nice is part of the job because they're earning a commission.
But
Yeah.
you reviews is a good reference point to look
Yeah.
for.
A good reference point is just understanding what you're dealing with in that environment. In terms of, there's sometimes, look, I'm a traditional journalist, so my go-to is you get the complaint, you present it to the other party and get their side. With reviews and with posts on social media, other posts, you're only getting one side. And that's the thing. Then so many service providers are too terrified to go on and engage. And I understand it's like they feel like they're diving into shark-infested water, and whatever they say, they're going to be judged badly. But that's a whole conversation on its own, and I will touch on it at DealerCon. But so how do you navigate that? Do you don't go in at all? Do you just stay chop still? Or if you do go in, how do you handle it? Do you take everything offline? Do you try and, it is a very, very big challenge for service providers, especially dealerships and OEMs.
Now let's get back to the CPA, Consumer Protection Act.
The Consumer Protection Act.
Now, since I don't want to read an 80-page legal document, what is the Consumer Protection Act?
Okay, so it's a piece of legislation that came about when a bunch of South African legislators had a look at the best consumer protection legislation in the world. So mainly US, Australia, Europe, UK. And they cherry-picked a lot of the good stuff and put it into the Consumer Protection Act, which came into effect in April of 2011, 1st of April, April Fool's Day. So you say that, but when service providers are getting the basics wrong, and I'm talking not so much dealership, I'm talking about retail level, then I say to them, we've had this for 14 years. It's enough time for you to train your people I'm talking about the basics of, returning a defective product and that kind of thing.
So how does it apply? What's the nutshell? How does it apply to cars?
Well, I'll tell you how it applies to cars. Basically, I mean, the act is very, very broad. I'm going to, for the sake of this chat, I'm going to look at where something has gone wrong with the car, right?
Please.
So it depends whether you've bought it physically in a dealership or whether you've bought it online. And with any online purchases, here and in many parts of the world, you have a special protection. It's usually a cooling off period of 7 days from the date of delivery, right? So the day that woman's car that looked nice but was far from nice arrived on the flatbed at her home, 7 days in which to just change your mind because you haven't had the opportunity to look, touch, drive, and all of that. If you don't test drive a car that you've bought from a dealership because you didn't have the time, or they told you they can't find the keys, or that's another thing, or you can only drive it around the yard, walk away from that one. You have the right to a proper test drive, and I mean, yes, they can drive with you because we have a high crime rate in this country. But anyway, getting back to that, so that's technically what you have. But can you imagine now, if it's a just I don't like the color looks different, then if it's just a change of heart, then you have to pay the cost of sending it back. That's all the ECTA, the Electronic Communications and Transactions Act, says. You have that 7-day cooling off period. It doesn't have to be defective. You don't have a cooling off period when you buy in a store, right? If you bought that jumper and in a store and you chose to not try it on, and you got home and it was too tight or whatever, a lot of stores will take it back, but legally they don't have to, because you had an opportunity to engage, to try it on, and you chose not to, right? If you buy at a dealership, there's no cooling off, changed my mind. You got the car home and your husband or wife or child said, that's a hideous color, what were you thinking? Or those cars are so lame, or whatever. You no right to take back. But whether you've bought online when you've got the cooling off period of a week, or whether you bought in a physical dealership, whether you have that week's cooling off period or not, if something's wrong with the car, if there's clearly a defect, and here's the important thing, that was not disclosed to you at the time of sale and you agreed to it. So, you might, let me, I'll give an example. The brake pads need replacing, whatever. And that's for your account. We've given you a really special deal. We'd suggest you take it off and get that seen to, or the shocks or whatever, because now you're looking at a few thousand. And you sign. Then you can't obviously come back the next week or within 6 months and say, you need to replace the shocks. But things that aren't disclosed, and this is what I get day in and day out. The car broke down, the car shudders terribly over 100 Ks, the whatever. Or things like the reverse camera doesn't work, the parking sensors aren't working, there's no beeps or whatever, then they are responsible for fixing that, because they didn't disclose those defects to you, and you have a right to expect, therefore, a car in good running order. So that's why you'll find, especially with cars, and that there will be a lot of, they should disclose this and this and this. The dodgy ones won't disclose the major things and leave you to break down and find that out and then refuse to help you.
But what if they didn't know about it either?
That is not acceptable.
Is
so
it? Okay.
No, it's not acceptable, because the person that you paid your money to is liable. So they should have done their homework with the person that they bought the car from. And here's an interesting thing, Alan. I found this. When some dealerships are selling the car, a second-hand car, pre-loved or owned, whatever you want to call it, and then the problem happens and comes back, and it's usually within weeks. Oh gosh, we didn't know. We bought this car in good faith. We didn't know. They can do their checks. They selling used goods. They can pay to do the checks. They can check the mileage. They can do all of that. But no, we just accepted everything on good faith, and we've sold you the car. You go to trade in a car at that dealership. Wow, they'll do those checks, and they'll find all the problems and want to give you a very, very low price as a result. So I'm not buying this, which we didn't know. I'm not buying it. It's unacceptable.
So they are liable. So if they genuinely didn't know and the car starts clunking,
they're responsible.
4 months later, 5 months later?
They must go and claim back from the person they bought from.
Oh, okay.
But it's very easy to make the consumer pay. Make it the consumer's problem.
Now, it is easy to do that and people accept it. But if I don't want to accept it, how do I do? How do I enforce the CPA without having to pay for a lawyer, which is going to be even more expensive?
Right. So there's the Motor Industry Ombudsman, MIOSA, and they get, I imagine, far more complaints in cases than they could ever deal with, because it's just such a big category of consumer complaints. So there is a process, and they then will, like all the other ombuds in the financial services field and consumer goods, their mandate is then to go to the other party, the dealership, or the OEM, and get their side of the story, and then they make a deliberation. So clearly, not just in this ombuds, but in most ombuds, if the customer doesn't get the result they want and they think there's bias on the part of the ombud, I'm not saying there isn't. I don't know, but I'm just saying it's not necessarily the case. But that can be, I mean, when you have a car problem, it's big money, it's affecting your mobility, and, and you can wait months for a fix, or not even a fix, a deliberation, an outcome from MIOSA. So wherever you go, unless you come to a journalist or someone that's able to get a quick turnaround, you're looking at a long time, and that's expensive because now you've got to pay to get around some other way. And then if the MIOSA doesn't have any enforcement rights, so if the dealership, I have a lot of these, I've got one at the moment, the dealership, the MIOSA ruled in favor of the consumer. So the dealer must take back car and refund or pay for a major repair. I can't remember which it is. And they ignore it, which happens. And those are lovely for me, because what does that say about the dealership? And we talk about MIOSA, where so many consumers say they're biased towards the dealership, right? And now they're found in your favor and they just ignore it. Then you can go and kick it up to either the consumer the commission, which then refers it to the consumer tribunal, which is the same standing as a court of law, right? So their findings, if it's a fine or whatever, it's legally enforceable on paper. Or you can get a lawyer and take it to court. But as you know, that is also a very, it's expensive, and it's not quick. It's not quick justice, if it's justice at all.
But at a bare minimum, the ombudsman might go
first step, or you could go to your if you've got a provincial consumer affairs office, and like Cape Town has Western Cape has their own consumer court process. You could do that. But yeah, my experience tells me that that's not going to be a quick fix, and most people need a quick fix. But it's better than nothing, because it's not going to cost you anything.
Now, I used to also, for my sons, work for a bank.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Now, give me your opinion on this. Now, the bank, whenever you finance a car,
right,
the legal owner is actually the bank.
Yes.
So the Consumer Protection Act applies to the bank. Because I think legally what happens is the bank buys the car from the dealer and then...
Yes, pays the dealer in full.
Pays the dealer in full and then sells it through an installment sale agreement to you. So the bank takes on the Consumer Protection Act risk, not the actual
Yes,
dealership.
tell that to the banks. I must say, some of the worst cases I get with the really bad players, motor dealerships, that they just, every deal is problematic. They sell a lot of cars cash, right? So there's no oversight. There's definitely some oversight when the bank is involved. And I certainly put pressure on the banks to say, you need to weigh in here. And it's much easier when the deal is new. Because if you find that people finance these cars for up to 96 months now. That's been, 8 years? It's ridiculous. So if you're deep into a car installment agreement, I mean, to unravel that and put the person back into the position they were before, it's just, the car goes horribly wrong, whether it's new or used, and it's finance, and it happens, that horribly wrong happens within the first few months or even the first year, ideally. Ideally first 6 months when the CPA is still. So I always say to people, don't get fobbed off. People get told by dealerships, oh, no, it just needs to run in. Hello, what is it, 1958? It's not nothing needs to be run in. It's not going to stop shuddering like that. It's not going to, the brakes are not going to stop squealing. This is the problem. Anyways, a lot of some dealerships that complaints I've helped, I can see it. By the time it comes to me, it's a year later, and the person's been fobbed off and fobbed off and fobbed off, and they're just waiting for those 6 months to expire. So yes, to get back to the banks, in my experience, they will take up their responsibility as the owner of the car and act against, or certainly mediate, and then you're more likely to get a result out of the dealership, because they don't want a bank to cut them off. They want to have all those options. And speaking of options, financial service providers seriously underestimate, on purpose or unknowingly, the financial literacy of the average South African. So you get people buying a car that don't understand how finance works at all. So I saw a complaint this week where I was actually asked to talk about it on radio, and I wasn't able to, but I saw the complaint. So we bought a car, the F&I, finance and insurance person in the dealership, only offered him 2 finance options from 2 banks. Why? And he took the one, and he said, I was assured that the interest rate wouldn't change. Well, it can't in the contract, but we have interest rate fluctuations that are enforced on us by the Reserve Bank, and so now he's complaining because his installment was this, and then there were a few. Or we've had I don't know what came through now. Recently, we've had a few reductions in the interest rate, but we know we had that terrible spell, and now he's complaining. Clearly, that's on him. Although he should, and he didn't ask more. I would have said, let me see offers from all the banks, or check them out myself. I'm that kind of person. More people need to get involved in the process, but they want the quick, easy thing to just sit and say, yeah, okay, sign. And I'm afraid you're laying yourself open to being, well, not. Let's say you're going to pay more than you should. Your best interests may not be served if you sit back passively and wait for everything to be presented to you.
I don't think your interests will ever be served if you sit back passively.
No, I know, but my inbox, Alan, is full of emails from people who've done just that. And you can say, well, they should know better. But I think, the legislation goes so far, and then we've got treating customers fairly that comes in. And so when it's obvious that this person doesn't have a lot of experience, it's the first car they're financing or whatever, I think there's an obligation on the part of somebody representing financial service providers I know there is. The problem is there's never any proof of what went on. Only the document counts, and that's my problem, is that you try and get involved in these cases, but I'm an impartial third party. I can only go on what's presented. The complainant can say, well, this and this happened, but most cases I'm sure they're right, but I can't. It's hearsay. So yeah, this is a.
But it is important what you mentioned. If the banks don't want to work with the dealer, you got to ask why.
Yeah, and if your insurance company doesn't want to insure something or is putting a hectic premium on it, also ask yourself why. They are risk averse. They are telling you, risky choice. In where you're going to drive that car, risky choice. But insurance will charge you $3.5K a month, but. So I always say now, especially because I got a lot of complaints about people they bought the car, there was a certain tracking requirement, and then it changed as the risk increased, and either the broker didn't inform them or they got the email and didn't read it and didn't act on it. Cars hijacked or stolen, no cover because you didn't get the second tracking device or the kind that we wanted. And that's another thing. So never, it was always the case, but especially now, never sign an offer to purchase until you've got an insurance quote or series of quotes on it. And also find out what the tracking requirements are from your insurer, because that can also get expensive. But, because most people pay it off over 3 years. And so now you've got that on top of a really, really high premium every month, plus your installments. It can knock someone out of the water before they've even,
And that insurance premium can be a shock. When I bought my BMW, me being the good consumer I am, did not do that.
There you go.
That was hard.
There you go.
And I'm not young, and I still had that premium. It was like, what are you talking about?
I know. Look, if I didn't have this job, I would be naive about a lot of things. Trust me. I learned through the mistakes of all the people that trust me with their problems and share their stories with me. So I just pay it forward and say, listen, this is what I know. These are the mistakes and the pitfalls that are coming to me. And I talk to banks and insurers, via email, daily. So I'm aware of that. And so many people just don't think of it. They think, either it's their first car and that doesn't occur to them. And if they're young, especially if they're male and young, 25 under or even 30 and under, the risk is huge, and that's going to reflect in their premium. But, they might think, well, I'm driving this car, so that's what I'm used to paying. It's kind of the same thing. Meanwhile, they've switched models, or that model in the last 6 months has now been put at the top of that hit list for hijackers and thieves. And I dealt with a case. A woman had a 10-year-old Fortuner, a school principal up here in Gauteng, and she didn't get the memo about the tracking device. Car was hijacked while visiting another school, and her premium at the time, they had taken hijacking out, but the premium had hardly dropped, which I thought was very strange if it's that risky, because maybe she would have noticed if it taken it out. But the premium that she was paying at the time it was stolen, a 10-year-old Fortuner, was 3,000 Rand. Mm-hmm.
Because of?
Mm-hmm. Because of the risk of what actually did happen. And then she had no cover. I have so many of these cases, Alan.
So
break my heart. That's a financial disaster. It could take you many, many years to recover from that. Repudiated insurance claims. You say you work for an insurer. You will know. Repudiated car insurance claims. I get them. And third party, that's another whole podcast. Third party claims, what people think they are and what they actually are. As a third party, But I just feel so passionately about it, because people are driving cars now as we speak that they think they're covered, but they're not. And they're going to find out, hopefully they won't have an accident.
Insurance companies are profitable entities. Well, they aim to be profitable entities. So they get money in, they have to pay money out. Money out is claimed.
And they have to look after that. They can't pay out, we all know, and the insurance industry can't with a straight face deny it, that they look for reasons not to pay out. And so many consumers give them to them, in the case of this woman, this school principal, that I said, why didn't you tell her? For 2 years she was driving around without that key kind of cover and a high risk vehicle. And they gave her opportunities, this and this and this, and then they took it off her cover. But her premium went down by under 100 Rand, mind you. She didn't notice anything, And I said, why didn't you tell her as a client? Oh, we don't have to. We sent the email. I'm like, and she phoned in, but it was about an unrelated issue, so they didn't tell her. We don't have to, and don't have to send another email. We don't have to try to get her on the phone. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, maybe legally, maybe the policyholder protection rules don't make you, but from an integrity point of view, from a fairness point of view, we can't rely on that happening. So you have to read your terms and conditions, check your emails, find out what I would do. Like you did with your, what was it? If my gearbox packs up. Phone your insurer. You run the risk of them thinking, are you going to now stage this or something? But just, if my car is stolen or hijacked, I just want to check. This is my tracking device. This is where I keep my car. This is my address. Is everything okay? I've just been reading in the media that a lot of claims are being reputed. And you've got it on record. Yes, it's fine. And you've also got peace of mind. I would, especially in Gauteng, I would definitely do that.
And note down the time and date of that phone call.
Absolutely. I can be a bit of a slapdash sort of person, like not meticulous in documentation, that kind of thing. But this job, when it comes to this, that's the other tip. The first time something goes wrong, start documenting, right? Whatever, either on your phone, on a piece of paper, whatever is comfortable for you, in your diary. This date at this time spoke to this person who promised this, and then when you just helping yourself to have a good case. If you need to take it up with an ombudsman, with somebody like me or whoever, it increases your chances of getting justice so much, because it's such a solid body of evidence.
So right, to summarize. So
you summarize.
When you look for a car,
yes,
look for somebody who cares, a dealer that cares,
yeah,
manages reviews, does all of those things. In fact, when you're buying anything, a hotel, airline, anything, look for the reviews.
Yes.
Doesn't mean they're perfect, but
bear in mind that there's going to be a certain percentage of them which is going to be one-sided and not fair to this is me saying this, right? They are not all going to be fair to the company.
Yes, because what I always do, booking a hotel, there's always the grumpy person.
Always that person that can't be pleased or had a really unreasonable request.
Don't just take the star rating. Go into the reviews. Read some of the 5s. Why are they
Very,
5s?
very
Go
good.
into the 1s and
Yeah.
2s and ask
Yeah.
why.
Also, look for current reviews because dealerships change hands or new dealer principal or whatever, and that just changes everything. So look at really recent reviews.
So second, especially if it's an older car, get someone who knows what they're talking about to look at the car because they all look pretty on the outside. That's why you're there buying it.
Yes. Also ask questions like, sometimes these cars have been in an accident, the airbags popped out and they didn't get put back in.
And how do you
That's
check
expensive.
it's an airbag?
How do you check? So you need an expert that know how to do it.
So find an expert, then documents, read the documents,
Please.
know what you are.
The smaller the print, the more important it is for you to read it.
And if they're selling you a value-added product like a warranty, a dent and scratch, what do they cover? What don't they cover? And how much do they cover? A warranty they're not all the same.
No, look for the word, hunt down the exclusions and the limits on components.
And then once you bought that car, should be fine.
Hope it's fine.
The Consumer Protection Act is there.
It's your friend, 6 months.
Consumer Protection Act, go on, Google it, read up. So if something does go wrong, go up, Google it, read up on that.
Or just put my name in a search engine and write a return or something like that. I've written
so much about
hundreds of things. Yeah, and many pertaining to cars. Yeah.
The Ombudsman is your friend. It might be slow, but it is your friend.
And it's free, yes.
And it's free. And also the bank, if there's finance involved, go complain to the bank.
Yes,
Sorry,
tell them.
We do have banks at DealerCon as well. So
but that's fine.
One thing I'll say about bank, they do take it seriously because they are concerned about their reputation. Every bank is. Quite right.
Every bank is. And likewise, the dealerships want to keep the bank sweet as well for obvious reasons. So the banks are in many cases very open to, especially if it's a bad defect, and the car now really, we got to the point where the car needs to be taken back, but not treated as just a trade-in, which so often happens, where the consumer suffers the loss as if there was no defect. That's another big one. But yeah, I think if you approach your bank to say, listen, you are the legal owner of this car, you have a stake in this problem, and I'm relying on you to put some pressure on the dealer to come to the party. And then just copy me should help.
Cool. So, DealerCon itself. Let's talk about dealerships.
Unfortunate name, I have to say.
DealerCon.
Well, from where I sit.
That's very true. Didn't look at it that way. But speaking to a dealership,
yes.
Right? Couple of words. What should a dealership, if you do take this seriously and you want to be taken seriously and you want to show someone you're taken seriously, how do you do that?
First of all, I understand it's, dealer principals have a lot on their plate. They have a lot of responsibilities. They're pulled in many directions, but you're the boss of that company. I've had so many cases where people who've had things go badly wrong with cars are told by frontline staff that they cannot have any access to the dealer principal at all. And I found that frankly appalling. So, Richard Branson says the higher up you are in a company, the more accessible you should be to your customers. And that's not how it works in practice. But, and he didn't do too badly for himself with that mindset and that approach. So yeah, I think I think I do have a right to say this because I deal with industries across the board, but I think in some cases the dealer principals lack training in customer service. So they there's this feeling of, this person's just wanting to get out of the car, they can't afford it, they overstretch themselves. Yes, there are customers like that, but when I talk in the industry colloquially, that's the knee jerk. Oh, they're just looking for ways to get out of the car, they can't afford it. And if you have that in your mind when somebody approaches you, are you going to give them good customer service? No. Because you're distrusting their motives, right? So have a clean mind, be accessible, and put yourself in their shoes. It sounds simple, but it doesn't. Or pretend this is your daughter or your mother or your sister, brother, etc. It's not always a woman. And how would you like them to be treated in this situation? I find that service providers are genuinely very keen to play nice and fair with their customers if the problem is solvable cheaply, which is difficult in a cars, but there are cases. So we'll be lovely and we'll live up to our mottos and all those lovely, warm, fuzzy, customer service things that we put out there. And I see this everywhere, banks, whatever. But if it's going to cost us a lot of money, then we will find ways to step back from it. And I'm sorry, but it doesn't matter what the quantum is. If it's not right, if you're doing your customer down, if they've paid for something that they have a right, an ethical right and a legal right to have full use from, and you're fobbing them off, you're saying it's fine, we're going to keep fixing it. This is the biggest one. Yes, they're very quick to say, well, no, sometimes it's unreasonable. There's a tear in up, this is an extreme case, and I've never had one, but there's a tear in upholstery and I want a new car. I mean, that's not okay. But no, fix the tear. But when it's a genuine issue that's just not being fixed, and you come back and the person gets to the point after the third time, whether they've got a courtesy car or not, and they I don't want this car, and you say, well, this is why we have a warranty, we have a right to keep it. That is not fair. Make it fair, and in holding hands with the OEM, and that's the other thing. Consumers generally don't see a line. It's the same brand, it's the same branding, but when they have a problem, then they discover the separation. The one passes the buck to the other, and usually the OEM just sort of says, well, you must deal with the dealership, and they feel very let down and unheard and all the rest. So I just bear in mind that it's not the consumer's fault that it's an expensive problem. They've paid a lot of money, and they're paying a lot of money to the bank. So if there's genuinely a situation that needs you to fix it with money, do it. Don't make the consumer suffer the loss, which is what I see. Look, I should have said this right up front. Consumers don't generally write to me about their brilliant experiences with any service provider. There's nothing in it for them, right? Occasionally I do get a lovely one who just has to share. But so I get the gone wrong cases. So I must commend all dealers out there for getting it right most of the time. When it goes wrong, and if you're saying it doesn't happen often, well, then put your money where it is. It's not costing you that much money then. So when in cases that do go wrong, do the right thing, whatever it takes. Maybe slash your marketing budget for that month, whatever the case may be. Do you know what I mean? You're putting the money out in the marketing, wherever you're doing it these days. But the best marketing you can do is treat the customer right because believe me, they might not go viral on social media, but it's going to get out there, And I invite, by the way, anybody who's had a wonderful something go horribly wrong with their car and expect to have drama to get justice. And we're just absolutely wowed by how the dealership responded. Write and tell me. Let's start sharing those stories. I would love them. I mean, I remember one case. I have a lot of cases where things go wrong in the dealership. The cleaner drives the car and smashes it into the wall, or there's a smash during a test drive, or there's negligence. They were speeding. The mechanic shouldn't even have been driving the car. It wasn't a mechanical issue or whatever. And this guy, I remember, I'm not going to say the brand. It was in Umhlanga. And it was a premium brand, and the car was being driven down the ramp onto the lower level, and it was just an open ramp, and I don't know, pressed the accelerator instead of the brake or something, and shot over the ramp down to the lower level, landing on two cars, including my complainants. And he told me when it happened because he was expecting a fight, and the dealership just replaced his car with one slightly better than he'd had. And one dealership can do it. I mean, it was years ago. I've never forgotten about that, because it shouldn't be that wow, but because that's the right thing to do. But I mean, as I say, it wasn't a cheap car. It was a premium European SUV. and not an old one. So yeah, I think, yeah, do the right thing. My father always used to say, if you're battling with what's the right thing, ask what you'd like to happen if it was happening to you. And that's a very quick way to find your conscience and be pointed towards what you should be doing here. And if the quantum is stopping you, you've got to ask yourself, is that fair?
So 2 pieces of advice. One, get out of your office and get into
Yes.
and talk to the customer. Because
Let them have access to you, even if it's by email. But, if it's the car's in for the third time, it's spending more time with your dealership than in the owner's garage. Then, yes, it is. If they want to come in and speak to you, don't have your staff protect you from dealing with a customer. I mean, that is part of your job, surely.
And the second piece of advice, pretend it's your spouse or your daughter or your son. What advice would you give them? Just give that advice back to yourself.
Yes.
And you as a woman, right, I must ask this. Do you get treated the same as a man would get treated?
I do, because of my 15 years in doing motoring journalism. I met a lot of people in the industry, and I know. Look, I tell people, I teach them the little bits of terminology here, like B-pillar and whatever, the haircut. And if you're a woman and you don't have someone coming, in 2025, you shouldn't need a man with you to be taken seriously. But it helps. Unfortunately, it's the reality. But if you're just going in on your own, he has some lingo that will make them think that you know what you're talking about, and here are the questions to ask. But I do get, women writing to me and saying, I don't think they're taking me seriously, whether that's real or perceived. I wasn't there, so I don't know. But I certainly don't. I mean, look what I do for a living. No one's going to little woman me. It's just not going to happen.
Because I was at a bank recently. One of the questions I asked is in their book of business, how male-female split.
Yes.
51% male,
Women.
49% women. So
Okay, so it's
half
very
the
close.
buyers are women.
Yeah. And then if you drill down deeper, a lot of the purchase decisions and in a household, the woman might not be earning as much, or maybe is spending her time at home with children or whatever. But the purchasing decision is mainly coming from the woman in your typical family situation.
And understanding those purchasing values. What are they looking at?
Yeah.
It's very true. Well, Wendy, we could talk for hours.
We could.
It's been a fascinating conversation. But one last question. Where can you find Wendy Knowler?
Okay, so I have a website, wendyknowler.co.za. I had to think about that. If you Google my name, it'll come up. And it's split into queries from people who want me to present to them or whatever, talks. And mainly it's for consumers. You click on consumer complaint, and I've got a lovely form there, Alan, which I've developed over the years that aims to get people to give me all the information I need should I have the capacity to take up their case. I don't have to email back. I don't have any admin help. I'm a team of one. So that's the way I like people to get hold of me, because I prompt them to give me the stuff I need. And I'm on Twitter X at Wendy Knowler. And thanks to my 26-year-old son, I will soon be engaging with other social media platforms. He's told me I'm gonna be in this game for a while still. Sorry, service providers. And so I need to stop being boomery about it and get onto I don't know if it's going to be TikTok or Instagram, but I'll do one of those things pretty soon.
So wendyknowler.com or at Wendy Knowler?
For now, yes.
That's on X. I still
on
can't
X.
get used to X.
I know, or can I? But X at Wendy Knowler. And I built up quite a few followers. So it works for me because I can ask questions, about consumer issues and get lots of responses and that kind of thing. So, I'm fairly active on X.
Good to know. Right. Quick fire round.
Okay.
First thing that comes into your mind, right? What was the first car you remember falling in love with?
Oh, I thought you were going to say that I drove. Well, I'll show my age and say that was a Ford Escort, 1978 model, that I fell in love with. My dad was a petrol head, and he had a Piranha in the 1970s.
A Piranha?
Yes. You
I don't
know,
even know what a piranha is.
Cars.co.za's got one, I think. It's one of their classics, I think. I'm sure.
Okay.
So it was a Ford Capri.
I know what a Ford Capri is.
But it was, my mom had a Ford Capri, and he had I can't remember what car he had. And he kept wanting to drive that all the time instead of his car. And then, so he started investigating, and he got a Piranha. They were V8 Piranhas, and it went like crazy. And he didn't want to show off with exhaust notes, and so he was like getting silencers in there. But that's how cars happened for me, because he was a petrol head, and I'm the oldest of 2 daughters, and I showed interest, and so he poured all his passion into me, and we would go driving on the N3 in Durban out, blasting away, and I always went with him, and that was my first experience of like proper joy and love for a car, and also seeing my father's passion for it, and yeah.
So you do consider yourself a petrol head?
I do. I'm qualifying it because I'm not, test driving different cars every week as I did for 15 years. It was just the consumer journalism was just taking up too much time for that passion. But yes, I mean, I still judge the Cars.co.za cars every year, which is absolute highlight in my calendar. But yeah, yes, I love cars. Let's put it there.
And so, is there a car that if you're driving along the highway, you look sideways at now? What catches your eye now?
Just about any supercar, like any 12-year-old boy, we just have a look. I love a Porsche. My first car in that league that I fell in love with was a 911.
Next one. If you could sit down and have a fireside chat with anyone in the world today or in history, who would it be?
I'd love to chat to the Arch, Desmond Tutu. I met him once. He always said, "Please call me Arch." And then he just popped into my head. So, yeah, I think I would choose him.
Well, that's a great one.
There's so many.
Our
but
Nobel laureate
He
himself.
popped in. He was just a bit like Medea, I suppose, just had so much to admire and such a story, and yet the humblest person, and so funny. I'd love to pick his brain and hear all his stories.
Very good choice. Do you have a favorite sport?
Yes. You mean, well, I don't play sport. Apart from walking the dog, that's the exercise. But I'm a huge tennis fan.
Okay.
And I live with someone who's very into Formula One and soccer, football. So that's on the TV a lot. But my passion is tennis. I've been a tennis fan since I was very little. Played a bit when I was younger, but I don't play anymore.
And your favorite player?
Yannick Sinner. He is a world number 1, but I've liked him long before he was world number 1. And woman player a lot, but I just have a particular affection for an Italian. Oh, she's also Italian. That's just a coincidence. Yasmin Paolini. She's great. Yeah.
And you're probably old enough to remember Borg versus McEnroe.
Of course I do. Yes.
That
now
epic final, the greatest tennis game of all time.
I know. And now we've got Alcaraz Sinner at the French Open that went on and on. That's kind of gone into that league now. But it's nice to hear the McEnroes and the Martina Navratilovas commentating now. And sometimes they talk about stuff that happened in their day. And yeah, that's a good part of getting older. You've got that whole legacy thing going on. But yeah, the Grand Slams are great. You can, if I'm not actually working on a column or a script where I need to concentrate fully, but if I'm going through my inbox and taking up cases, then I pretty much, a lot of the time, I'll have tennis on in the background.
Okay, and your favorite movie or series of all time?
I'm going to go with series, and it would be Ted Lasso. My daughter told me about the series. It's on Apple. It's a sort of English-American, well, it's set in England, but he's an American who came over, was chosen to coach a soccer team because he knew nothing about soccer, not football. And it's just, I think, 3 seasons, and my daughter told me about it when they were done. So I binge watched them, and I've thrilling news. Just heard that there's another series in the making, so that's really exciting me, I have to say. It's a bit of a lot of people, when you Yeah, I recommend it to people, and then they go and find it, and they go, "Oh, thank you. That was just amazing." Yeah.
I do enjoy Ted Lasso, but I'm an
Yeah.
out-and-out soccer fan.
Well, there you
The whole
go.
concept of an American coming
I
over to
know, but
Britain,
what a brilliant.
it's like, huh?
I mean, what a brilliant screenplay. I mean, who would have thought,
It was. It's
yeah, so
refreshingly positive.
We'll exactly, and we'll chat about the next season.
Are you an Apple or Android user?
Apple.
Apple through and through.
Yep. Well, I don't do tablets. No, not the phone. Sorry, not the watch. Rather, not the watch. I actually do have a smartwatch that I got on a deal. So it's not an Apple. So not through and through to qualify. But this is a protest. I just got tired of. I'm not on any rewards programs, but I'm tired of obsessively worrying about how many steps I've taken that day. Have I reached this goal? How many hours did I sleep? How many hours were REM? That sort of. I actually did it to track my sleep because I won't go into it. And I just thought I just want a normal thing on my wrist that tells the time. So I will go back, but I'm having a break from being tracked.
And do you have a social media profile? What's your favorite platform?
Well, perhaps unsurprisingly, given my age, I'm not fully active on as many as I should be. I'm planning to embrace TikTok or Instagram very soon, but currently, I do a bit of Facebook and I do a bit of work on Facebook, but not enough. The one that I'm fully engaged with is X, as we now have to call it.
Cool. And last one. If you want to remind your kids about something, do you call them or WhatsApp?
So it's not an emergency. If it is an emergency, I'd obviously phone them. But
quick message of
WhatsApp them or voice note. Because being in their 20s, they're both, very quick to respond unless they actually can't. But it's not, some people, whatever their age, just aren't really on it.
So you've jumped as the chat rather than a call.
So the voice note is something in between. So they can listen when they want to. My daughter works in a game reserve and she's, can't be on her phone the whole time. So I found that it's more intimate than a WhatsApp, but they can listen when it suits them on demand rather than because Mum's calling them right now.
Very good. Thank you very much, Wendy.
Thank you, Alan.